On May 10, 1940, the German Wehrmacht invaded France and the Low Countries of the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. This is the little-known story of Operation Fallschirmjager, the Battle of the Hague. The Germans employed their Fallschirmjager, or airborne troops, effectively during the invasion of Belgium, most famously capturing the fortress of Eben-Emael. But the Germans also employed their paratroopers on another airborne operation, aimed to quickly secure key airfields of Ypenburg, Ockenburg, and Valkenburg in the Netherlands. The plan was that once the airfields were secured, the Germans would then advance into the city of The Hague and capture the Dutch Queen along with her family and government officials, forcing them into a quick capitulation of the country. On May 10, 1940, at 0400 hours, the German Luftwaffe bombed the New Alexander Army Barracks at the north side of The Hague. The adjacent Walsdorp Army camp was also bombed in this first wave. 15 minutes later, the Luftwaffe plane circled around towards the airfield at Ypenburg and bombed it. Luftwaffe transport planes then appeared over the airfield and began dropping paratroopers. But the Dutch forces were now on full alert following the initial bombings and put up a fierce resistance of machine gun and small arms fire, which forced the German paratroopers to scatter in the areas around the airfield. Several German planes were also shot down or forced to land due to sustaining heavy damage. The Germans, however, quickly reorganized and stormed the airfield's main building. The Dutch army would continue defending the area between the airfield and the city and prevented the Germans from advancing beyond the airport. Meanwhile, at the Ockenburg airfield, the Germans had successfully parachuted into the area and had quickly secured that airfield. The Dutch defenders there were able to delay the Germans from regrouping, allowing additional Dutch army units to arrive and defend against a German attack into The Hague. While the Germans began to bring in additional troops to Ockenburg, the Dutch bombed the airfield, preventing its further use as a supply and staging area. Both sides took heavy casualties, but because the airfield at Valkenburg was only partially completed, it could not be used by the Germans to land transport planes or take off. In fact, some of the German transports, unable to land at Valkenburg and low on fuel, were forced to land on the nearby beaches and were destroyed by a Dutch warship and aircraft. The Germans did manage to push out of the Valkenburg airfield, taking the village itself and securing the bridges and buildings at a nearby town. By the early morning of May 10, 1940, the three airfields around The Hague were in German control, but the Germans had been unable to advance into the city itself or to capture the Queen. In the morning, the Dutch army regrouped and launched a counteroffensive against the Germans from the city of Ypenburg. The greatly outnumbered Dutch Grenadier Guards fought their way within artillery range of the airfield and, using mostly captured German guns, bombed the airfield, causing heavy damage. With buildings at the airfield now on fire and with little cover, the Germans redeployed to a nearby wooded area. The Dutch Grenadiers then assaulted the airstrip and captured many German troops while securing the area. Later that morning, 4 Dutch Fokker T-5 bombers managed to get through the Luftwaffe fighters and bomb the Ockenburg airfield, destroying several Junker Ju-52 transport planes on the ground. Immediately after this bombing run, Dutch army troops assaulted the airfield, forcing the Germans to retreat and leave behind aircraft and weapons. The Dutch army moved towards the towns of Leiden and Wassenaar, capturing the vital bridge at Valkenburg. Additional Dutch bombers managed to destroy more German transport planes on the ground. The areas around The Hague were secured by the Dutch army by 1730 hours, pushing all German units to nearby villages and woods. The Dutch had successfully retaken all the airfields and prevented the German plan to seize The Hague or capture the Queen, who by now had gone into exile in England. 4 days later, the German Luftwaffe retaliated with an immense aerial bombing of the city of Rotterdam, forcing the Dutch General Wilkenman to capitulate. Thus, while the German plan to capture The Hague by airborne troops had failed, they had taken the Netherlands in just a few days with relatively few losses. But the Dutch army's fierce resistance and counterattacks would also be an ominous warning to the German air troop units that they were not invincible. The losses at the Battle of The Hague vary from Dutch and German sources, but are placed as follows: Dutch losses, 515 killed and 1 bomber shot down, while German losses are between 134 and 400 killed, 700 wounded, and by Dutch estimates, 1,745 captured. The German Luftwaffe also lost a staggering 182 transport aircraft, mostly of the Junkers Ju-52 type. After the fall of the Netherlands on May 14, 1940, German divisions were redeployed to other battle areas. Belgium would surrender on May 28th, and France the following month on June 22, 1940. The German operation known as Fallschirmjager, the invasion of France in the Low Countries, was over in less than 6 weeks, with the Germans suffering over 27,000 killed and 110,000 wounded. While the Allied armies of France, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Great Britain suffered 360,000 killed or wounded and a staggering 1,900,000 captured. The Germans also captured a large number of French aircraft as well as small arms, artillery, tanks, and mortar guns. The French Navy was effectively rendered useless, and the Germans would be able to extend their territory well into the English Channel and the Bay of Biscay to be used later for submarine and air operations against the Allies. The Battle of the Hague is a great example of the training, leadership, and determination of the Dutch military facing overwhelming odds. As always, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please hit the like button and leave a comment. I'll catch you on the next one.